Well, Essendon has gone down to the Gold Coast Suns by 14 points in the VFL, 13-8-86 to 14-16-100. The game was played at the Hangar, and it was eerily similar to the game of the AFL game between the two teams, with the Suns pulling away late to win, on this particular occasion, by 14 points. The game was played, frustratingly, at exactly the same time as the AFL game was taking place, for those of us that like to watch both games, but you can, when you get home, watch the stream of the VFL game if you are so inclined or if you are interested. We had 10 players play, AFL listed players play in the match. We're going to go through everything you need to know about the match right now. If you like the content that I provide, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. It helps the YouTube algorithm when you do so. About 2/3 of the people watching this are not subscribed. It only takes 1 second to hit the subscribe button, and it doesn't cost any money. So if you could hit the subscribe button, I would really, really appreciate it. So the Essendon VFL team had a bye last week, just like the AFL team did, and they started in pretty good fashion, getting off to a 22-point lead at the first term. Archer Day-Wicks kicked 2 goals in the first quarter. Alwyn Davey, Cale Girine and Matt Guelphy also all kicked goals. The Suns bit into that lead a little bit, and we ended up taking a 10-point lead into half-time, with Guelphy and Davey also adding to their tallies in that quarter. McMahon took a magnificent specky, which you would have seen just in the opening of the video, and he was able to kick truly from that. But in the end, the Gold Coast were able to wear us down. But what you really want to know is, how did the individual AFL-listed players go in this game? Well, not surprisingly, Elijah Tsatas yet again racked up big numbers. Now, there was a bit of late drama in the AFL game related to Elijah Tsatas. He was on the phone with Brad Scott, apparently. He was in the car with possibly the need to come down and play in the AFL game, but eventually they decided, no, you can play at the Hangar. I think this had to do with Dersma's injury. This was what Brad Scott was saying in the press conference. They actually had to, he was talking to Elijah Saad. He was actually in the car. So I don't know what the time frame was of him getting to the ground and everything. But he racked up pretty good numbers again. 35 disposals, 2 marks, 4 tackles, 14 clearances, 4 score involvements, and 18 contested possessions. So he just tends to put up big numbers, Elijah. That's just what happens. But obviously they're looking for, a bit, something else. What he does tend to not do is kick all that well. His disposal efficiency is around 70%. The AFL average is about 78%. But his kicking efficiency is in the 40s. So that's really what he needs to work on. His disposal efficiency in this game was 63%. So look, you can read into that what you will. It's probably going to be a bit less when you're playing in the guts and you're, winning the ball as opposed to sort of being on the outside. But nevertheless, he put up big numbers again and was one of our best players. Reece Unwin kicked a goal, 1 goal, 1, had 13 disposals, 0 marks, a tackle, 4 clearances, 3 score involvements and 8 contested possessions. This seems to be the kind of numbers he puts up every week. He's a really good kicker of the football. I like his disposal. That's one thing I think Essendon need, is players that can kick the ball. One thing that annoys me is when Essendon recruit players that can't kick. This guy knows how to kick, just doesn't get a lot of it. He seems to get his 11, 12 possessions every week. I'm not sure there's a spot for him in the seniors at the moment, but I reckon he'll probably stay on the list for next year at the moment. Oscar Smart, the young small forward, who, let's face it, might have been probably a better choice in the side than Gresham. Guelphy, of course, would have been the obvious choice, but Smart probably as well, given Gresham's recent form. Smart had a pretty good game, had 15 disposals, 3 marks, 6 tackles, 1 clearance, 2 score involvements and 9 contested possessions, and he also kicked a goal. So we'll see how that goes with Smart. I don't think he'll make a debut this year. There's just not enough spots available. We've already had 11 debuts. I think there might be one more, perhaps. We could get to that, but I don't know if it'll be Oscar at this stage, especially with, Guelphy perhaps, ahead of him, probably at this stage. Vigo was probably our best or second best player. He had 16 disposals, 3 marks, 2 tackles, 6 clearances, 7 score involvements, 7 contested possessions, and 48 hitouts. So this was a pretty imposing performance, and there will be some of you that would have said, why isn't he in the seniors? And you could definitely make that claim that he should be in the seniors. Why are we playing Goldstein? I actually am not against playing Goldstein, simply because I just think we need a little bit more balance between youth and experience. We have an extraordinarily young team, a very, very young team in the seniors, and the ruck position is not the position that needs to be rushed. I mean, you can put in midfielders early when they're young, and you can do it with ruckman as well, but it's not as important, with a ruckman. Ruckmen tend to mature a bit later. And, look, we all saw what happened when Gold Coast and GWS both came into the competition 10 or 15 years ago, and it got absolutely belted because they had a team of 18-year-olds. It's fine to have a couple of experienced players in the midst of an extremely young team. So I'm not against Vigo playing a few more games in the VFL. I get the argument. I honestly totally understand it. Why not just play him if, Goldstein's not going to be playing next year? But look, experience still does matter, and you need someone to help guide the younger players and show a bit of leadership on the field. So, So look, I'm not against him, continuing to play a few games in the VFL. And I reckon with the current form he's showing, he may go ahead of Nick Bryan next year anyway. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen with Draper, but it could be sort of a Sam Draper, Vigo Visentini ruck duo, because Brad Scott likes to play the two ruckmen at this stage. But there's no need to rush him into the seniors at this stage, as much as I totally understand the argument. Jai Menzies kicked a goal. He had 9 disposals, 1 mark, 3 tackles, no clearances, 2 score involvements, 7 contested possessions. He's another player that, potentially could take Gresham's spot. He's obviously probably on the outer. I don't know if he'll be at the club next year. But look, on current form, I doubt there's a realistic spot. He's still young. But at the end of the day, there's probably just too many players ahead of Menzies at the moment, and he's just fallen a little bit out of favour. Liam McMahon, who kicked 2 goals in the VFL. He averages about 3, so just 1 less than average. He always kicks a couple, Liam. Doesn't put up a huge lot of other numbers, but he does know how to kick goals. 6 disposals, 3 marks, 1 tackle, no clearances, 2 score involvements, and 4 contested possessions. So interesting in the seniors with Archer May playing a bit of a blinder in the third quarter, kicking 3 goals in the third quarter. It's going to be difficult for McMahon to get into the side. We're going with the 3 talls at the moment with Peter Wright, Nate Caddy, and of course Archer May. So it's going to be difficult to play 4. I do like him though, McMahon. The thing I like about him, and I'd like to see a spot for him somehow in the seniors. I don't know how he gets in as a 4th tall, and maybe there just isn't a spot for him given the structure of the side, but I like how he's a conventional full forward. Nate Caddy is not conventional. He's an athlete. He's probably going to traditionally play, or not traditionally, he's probably going to inevitably play sort of that Jeremy Cameron role where he goes where he likes, uses it, he has a free rein to use his athleticism to roam around the 50 and even out of it. Liam McMahon is very much a sort of lead, mark, straight kick, very conventional kind of full forward, and I think that's actually a good thing. I think there's a potential for him to be down there playing out of the goal square at some point, but it's just very difficult to see how he gets into the side at the moment with the 3 other talls. So I hope he gets a call up before the end of the year. I think he's probably most likely to be the 12th debutant if he does get one, but it's more just the structure of the side that's holding him back at the moment rather than his output. His output continues to be quite good. Matt Guelphy kicked 2 goals, had 10 disposals, 5 marks, 5 tackles, no clearances, 1 score involvement and 2 contested possessions. Look, he kicked a couple of goals. That's probably the main, thing to take out of this. I was probably thinking to myself, why was he out of the side when Gresham was in? Gresham came on as the sub and didn't really have an impact. And Guelphy does give us that extra thing, that extra sort of variable in the seniors where he can play as a tall and a small. He's one of those few players that can play sort of as in both roles. Obviously, his role would be more of a small, but he also has a little bit of height about him. He can take a mark. So I would have liked to have seen him perhaps in the senior game against the Gold Coast instead of running around in the reserves in place of Gresham. Let me know what you guys think. If you have any, of your own opinions in the comments, I'm sure you will. The comments are always very, very opinionated on this channel. Kale Gerine, who had a little bit of an injury 2 weeks ago. Looks like he's recovered from that. Had 5 disposals, 3 marks, 1 score involvement, 3 contested possessions, 1 goal, 1. I guess you'd define him as a little bit of a project player at the moment. We've really got 8 players at the moment that can play, that are classified as tall forwards. If you sort of include Langford in that, I know he's injured at the moment, who's really been playing as a full forward during Brad Scott's tenure. We've got 8 players that can play, in the full forward role. So it's going to be difficult for Gerine. He's not going to get a debut this year. He's more of a player that we're going to see continued development from this year and maybe even next year. And I think next year will be an important year for Kale Gerine. See if he can push into the team, and then they'll have to make a decision on him after that. Saad El-Hawli, probably our 3rd best player, had 21 possessions, 1 mark, 1 tackle, 2 clearances, 3 score involvements, 10 contested possessions, which was the second most on the Essendon team behind Elijah Tsatas' 18 possessions. Obviously, he's a smooth mover, likes to run with the ball. Looking at his skill set and the things that he brings to the team, he would have been a pretty good addition to the senior team. I'm not saying he deserved to be in there. There's other players that probably deserved to be in there before him. But given that we were playing with a more attacking mindset in the senior side, a bit of flair, playing on quickly, it probably suits his style of play. And I can see him getting into the senior team if Brad Scott continues to go down this path of moving away from the, low impact, low intensity possession game to the more efficient, play on quickly attacking plan that we saw in the seniors yesterday. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with El-Hawli. He obviously had a very good game coming back from his hamstring injury yesterday in the VFL. Archer Day-Wicks also had a very good game. Kicked 2 goals in the first quarter, both of them. 12 disposals, 4 marks, 6 tackles, 1 clearance, 3 score involvements, 6 contested possessions. He was rated as being one of our top 4 players. And finally, Alwyn Davey Jr., who is struggling at the moment. Look, he kicked a couple of goals. That was all pretty good, just from the 6 disposals, though. 6 disposals, no marks, 2 tackles, no clearances, 2 score involvements, and 4 contested possessions. Look, he's going to be probably delisted at the end of the year. It's just going to be much more difficult for a player like him to retain his spot on the list, especially with the 4 mid-season draftees essentially added to Essendon's list, which adds more pressure, more selection pressure, and more pressure on players to retain their spot on the list. It's going to be difficult for Alwyn, unfortunately, to retain his spot on Essendon's list. So, there we have it. That is the VFL report. That is how the 10 players went. Some interesting performances. If nothing else, just the continued consistency of Elijah Tsatas. Maybe it's just that disposal efficiency. But then again, he was an emergency for the senior side. It was changed from Dylan Shield to Elijah Tsatas as that first emergency. So we'll see what happens. I was a bit skeptical, or I thought it was a bit weird that he wasn't even listed as one of the 3 emergencies initially for the senior side, but that obviously changed midweek. So does he get in before the end of the year? I did read an interesting report in the Herald Sun that Essendon are keen to keep him on the list. He is contracted until 2026. They see him as being able to continue to develop. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Is he going to request a trade? Will Essendon trade him, or just keep him and refuse and note that he's a required player? There's obviously a lot of investment that has gone into him as a high draft pick. So, you don't make these decisions lightly. So it'll be fascinating to see what goes on there. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments what you think about the performances of the players in the VFL team. Have a great day, everybody. And as always, go Bombers.